Julie Andrews won an Oscar and captured the hearts of people all over the world with her charm and grace. But for 60 years, she kept a secret, one that started in 1965 during a movie shoot. At that time, both she and the man involved were married. Their chemistry on set was so strong that people started talking. Rumors began to spread about secret hotel meetings. It got so serious that the studio threatened to destroy both of their careers if the affair continued. Julie chose to stay quiet. But now, after all these years, the beloved star of The Sound of Music has finally opened up about the romance that nearly cost her everything. Julie Andrews was born in 1935 in a small town in England called Walton-on-Thames. Even as a baby, her life was complicated. Her mother, Barbara, had an affair with a family friend, and Julie was the result. For many years, Julie believed someone else was her father. She only found out the truth when she was 15 years old. She kept that secret from the public until she revealed it herself in her autobiography, many years later. When World War II started, Julie's family fell apart. Her parents separated and later married new partners. Julie moved back and forth between her biological father and her mother, who had married a man named Ted Andrews. Life with her stepfather was hard. He drank too much and behaved inappropriately, crossing serious boundaries. Julie had to put a lock on her bedroom door to protect herself. They lived in a poor area of London and struggled to get by. Julie later said that the war years were among the darkest times in her life. But in the middle of all that pain, one bright light appeared, her voice. Despite his flaws, her stepfather noticed her talent and arranged for her to have singing lessons. That's when she met Madame Lillian Stiles Allen, a famous vocal coach. Julie looked up to her like a third mother. Madame Allen believed Julie had a rare gift, a beautiful, clear singing voice with an amazing range. Julie didn't think she was anything special at first. She used to joke that only dogs could hear her highest notes. But others were amazed. Julie trained hard, juggling school and music lessons while preparing for a career that most children could never dream of. Julie's early performances were with her parents. At just 10 years old, she stood on a crate so she could reach the microphone. Her mother played piano and her stepfather accompanied her. Soon she was singing for soldiers during wartime, riding on trains, and even sleeping in luggage racks alongside her friend and fellow child star, Petula Clark. Everything changed when she was 12. Her stepfather introduced her to a man who ran some of the most famous theaters in London. He gave Julie a chance to perform, and she blew everyone away. She sang a difficult French opera piece at the London Hippodrome, and the audience was stunned. What started as one performance turned into a job that lasted an entire year. She even had a comedy routine with a balloon artist named Wally Bogue. Julie would run on stage, pretend she could sing, and then wow the crowd. By the time she was 13, Julie was the youngest solo singer to ever perform at the Royal Variety Show in front of the King and Queen. After that, things took off. She was on the radio, then on television. She played roles in children's theater productions like Jack and the Beanstalk and Cinderella. By her teen years, Julie had a following all her own. Her first movie wasn't a major success. She provided the voice for a cartoon called The Singing Princess, but it was an important first step in her journey to Hollywood. At 19, she made her Broadway debut in a musical called The Boyfriend. She played the lead role of Polly Brown. It was September 30th, 1954, a night that changed her life forever. She had been recommended for the part by a British actress named Hattie Jacques, someone Julie always thanked for giving her a big break. Taking the role wasn't easy. Julie had to leave her family behind in England. She was scared because she was the one supporting them financially, and now she was flying across the ocean, unsure if the job would even work out. Her father told her to go, and that one decision changed her future. Julie's performance was a huge success. Critics loved her. Audiences couldn't get enough of her beautiful singing and perfect comedic timing. The show ran for 485 performances, and she won an award for her outstanding debut. But the biggest win came from two producers sitting in the audience, Alan J. Lerner and Frederick Loewy. They were working on a new musical called My Fair Lady and were looking for the perfect actress to play Eliza Doolittle. After seeing Julie, they knew they had found her. In March 1956, Julie was only 20 years old, but she was already a star. Her role in My Fair Lady made her even more famous. She played a poor flower girl who learns to speak and behave like a high-class lady, giving her the chance to show off both her voice and acting skills. The show was a huge hit and ran for years. The cast album became one of the best-selling records in the country. She took the show to London's West End in 1958 and later returned to Broadway in 1960 to play Queen Guinevere in Camelot alongside Richard Burton. He was a powerful Welsh actor, and the two shared a strong attraction. Julie admitted she felt drawn to him, but when he finally tried to flirt, she shut him down with a sharp response. She joked later that Mary Poppins swore. Even though they never became more than friends, their chemistry on stage was electric. Camelot struggled at first, but when a performance aired on The Ed Sullivan Show, ticket sales soared. The show became a hit, running for 3 years. Burton won a Tony Award, and Julie was nominated again. One very important person was in the audience: Walt Disney. He saw Julie in Camelot and decided she was the perfect actress to play Mary Poppins. At the time, Hollywood was making a movie version of My Fair Lady, and many people assumed Julie would star in it. She had made the role famous. But Warner Brothers gave the role to Audrey Hepburn because she was already a movie star. Julie was hurt. Audrey couldn't sing well, so her songs had to be dubbed by another singer. Julie once said that if they had asked her to sing for someone else's voice, she would have refused angrily. But losing that part opened a better door. Disney offered her the lead role in Mary Poppins. He visited her backstage after seeing her perform and told her she was his first choice. Julie told him she couldn't accept the role because she was pregnant. But Disney smiled and said, "That's okay, we'll wait." He believed in her so much that he even rented a house for her family in Los Angeles during filming. When Mary Poppins premiered in 1964, no one expected Julie to become a worldwide superstar. She was 29 and it was her first film. But the moment she floated down from the sky with her umbrella, audiences were hooked. The film made over $44 million in the US and $13 million more overseas. The next year, it went up against My Fair Lady at the Oscars. Julie won Best Actress. Audrey Hepburn wasn't even nominated. In her speech, Julie cheekily thanked Jack Warner, the executive who had passed her over for My Fair Lady. To top it off, Mary Poppins earned more money than My Fair Lady even though it cost much less to make. Julie Andrews had officially become a Hollywood legend. And when The Sound of Music hit theaters in March 1965, it became one of the most successful films of all time, earning $286 million worldwide. Julie played Maria, a spirited young nun who brings joy and music to a widower and his 7 children. The opening scene, where she spins on a mountaintop, became one of the most iconic shots in film history. But filming it wasn't easy. A helicopter filmed the scene, and the force of the wind kept knocking her over. Who would soon become the love of her life? Julie Andrews and Blake Edwards had met briefly before, passing glances at parties, a polite hello, but it wasn't until that unexpected moment outside the therapist's office in the early 1970s that their paths truly crossed. Edwards was going through his own emotional turbulence. Recently divorced and grappling with depression, he was raw, real, and vulnerable, qualities Julie had come to recognize and respect. Their connection was slow, careful, and deep. They started dating in 1973, and after a few years of building a quiet, steady life together, they married in 1979. Blake Edwards wasn't just a husband. He became her creative partner and champion. Together, they navigated some of the most daring roles of her career, including Ten and Victor/Victoria. But their marriage wasn't without its trials. Edwards struggled with chronic illness and depression, and Julie, ever the caregiver, often found herself in a supporting role off-screen. They adopted 2 daughters from Vietnam in the mid-1970s, Amy and Joanna, completing a family that blended Hollywood glamour with real-world resilience. Their home life was fiercely private, protected from the glare of public scrutiny. Julie once said that their marriage worked because it was built on respect, laughter, and the ability to survive the lows. They stayed together for over 4 decades until Edward's passing in 2010. And then, there was the affair. 4 decades, Julie kept it buried. The world saw the perfect image. The nanny who could fly, the governess who sang on mountaintops. But behind the scenes, during the height of her fame in the mid-1960s, something happened that shattered that perfect narrative. It started on the set of The Sound of Music. He was powerful, older, and in a troubled marriage. She was riding a tidal wave of success and drowning in loneliness after her own marriage began to falter. Their chemistry was instant, magnetic, too strong to ignore. According to rumors long whispered among studio insiders, their affair began in secret during filming in Salzburg. Late-night hotel visits, coded messages, private walks in the mountains, until the gossip reached the studio heads. Both were warned, end it, or risk losing everything. Julie chose to stay silent. She returned home, reconciled briefly with her husband, and buried the truth beneath decades of smiles and show tunes. The man she had fallen for? He, too, returned to his family, and the affair became one of Hollywood's best-kept secrets. For nearly 60 years, Julie Andrews protected that part of her story. She built a second career, survived personal loss, reinvented herself again and again. Only in her later memoirs and rare interviews did she hint at the emotional complexity beneath the charm. Though she never named him publicly, insiders have long speculated about the man whose name she never dared say. It wasn't a scandal that defined her, it was her strength. Julie Andrews managed what few stars of her era could. She evolved, endured, and emerged not just beloved but admired. Behind the poise and perfect pitch was a woman who had lived through war, abuse, heartbreak, and rebirth. And who, through it all, never stopped singing. As her personal life changed, so too did her sense of identity. No longer just the ingenue with the crystalline voice, but a woman who had endured heartbreak, grown through restraint, and built lasting connections rooted in more than fleeting passion. Julie Andrews' relationships, whether romantic or platonic, mirrored the arc of her career. Full of grace, sometimes complicated, and always grounded in authenticity. Her decades-long marriage to Blake Edwards became a cornerstone of her life, a partnership forged not in glamour, but in mutual healing. They balanced each other, blending her quiet discipline with his biting wit, weathering personal losses and professional risks as a team. Yet the quieter stories, the near-romances with Richard Burton and Christopher Plummer, revealed something just as telling. In moments when temptation might have led others astray, she chose loyalty and restraint. In the glimmer of possibility, she found strength in self-awareness. Those friendships endured because they were built not on impulse but on respect. With Plummer, it evolved into a lifelong camaraderie, one that outlasted fame and survived decades. They remained artistic soulmates long after the final curtain call. By the time the 1980s arrived, Julie Andrews had not only evolved as a performer, tackling emotionally layered roles and confronting her deepest fears on screen, but also as a person. She had learned how to hold joy and grief in the same breath, how to lose without bitterness, and how to love deeply without always needing the spotlight. Her story isn't just about a golden voice or a string of iconic roles. It's about the resilience behind the roles, the relationships that shaped her, and the dignity with which she moved through every chapter of her life. That's a powerful and deeply human story, a journey of talent, heartbreak, resilience, and reinvention. Julie Andrews' career didn't end when her voice was taken from her. Instead, she evolved. What could have been a devastating final chapter became a turning point, not just for her, but for how the world saw her. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, she proved she was more than just a soprano. In That's Life and Duet for One, she tackled roles grounded in vulnerability, illness, and aging, experiences that mirrored her own life at times. Her performances were raw, stripped of musical flourishes, and rich in emotional honesty. The 1997 surgery that changed everything could have silenced her spirit. Instead, it marked a transition. Andrews sued, yes, but she also sought to understand and improve the science that failed her. She turned to advocacy, to education, to writing. Julie's green room, her children's books, her voice acting, all allowed her to keep giving something of herself, even if her singing voice was gone. Her Tony nomination refusal for Victor/Victoria remains a landmark moment in Broadway history. Not for defiance, but for principle. She stood up for her cast and crew when no one else did. That wasn't just professionalism. It was integrity. And when she returned to Disney with The Princess Diaries, it wasn't as a wide-eyed nanny or whimsical governess. It was as a queen, regal, warm, wise. Her later work, from voicing Queen Lillian in Shrek to directing My Fair Lady, reminded audiences that presence, grace, and soul matter just as much as pitch. She once had a 4-octave range that filled theaters. Now, her words, her choices, and her quiet strength resonate just as powerfully. Julie Andrews didn't just lose a voice. She found a different way to be heard, and the world kept listening.